This is the problem, people. Look, folks, do you understand what's at stake? And nobody wants to shift, change, sacrifice, adapt, adjust, overcome. Because what's at stake is your soul and your consciousness being absorbed into a metaverse. And they're walking the public into it step by step by step. A shot, a digital ID, requiring biometrics. Because what they need is the consent. They need the contract. They need you guys to say, okay, I agree to this. It's not all about the biotechnology. They're getting biotechnology into us in a multitude of ways. And do you notice that in some people, it's not having an effect? We all have it in us to some extent. Some people, it's not having an effect. Some people, it's already taking over their mind. And that's because of the heart. All of this biotechnology operates through magnetofection. And your heart is the greatest source of your own electromagnetic field. So what I'm saying is fix the heart, fix the heart, fix the heart, which I've been saying all along. Jesus teaches y'all how to do that. He's the only teacher of it. The separation of the wheat and the tares. Okay? But it's that contract, that consent. Okay? Those that took the shot, they consented to become GMOs, their body, their physical body, to become GMOs owned by a corporate entity. Data harvested, all of that data going into a quantum system used against us all for the purpose of geoengineering. The digital ID, those that took it, which was the real ID, those that took it, consenting to be ushered into a new form of digital governance that's going to operate under immigration and terrorism. And you guys can see this playing out politically, how that system is being ushered in slowly. These things work slow from the human viewpoint. But it's all about that consent, okay? And the next is going to be the banking system. Because they know if they cut you off from the banking system and then ultimately from being able to participate in commerce, that will get the majority of the stragglers that have held out this far, that will get them to consent into this. And what's at stake is your consciousness and your soul being patterned and harvested and launched into a metaverse. An alternate Earth. Look up Earth 2 sometime. Unfortunately, this is very real. I don't know what your knowledge is of the technological systems in this world and the path in it. But unfortunately, it is very real, no matter how crazy it may sound. So my question to you is, what's your willingness to resist? Because there's a lot of excuses that people have. And that is what you need to discuss with you and your family at the end of the day. Because not enough people are resisting this system to be able to make it go away, to be able to make it stop. But enough people are resisting to the extent that not everyone is going into this. All right? And biblically, that's the separation of the wheat and the tares. We were told this was going to happen. So, your question here, folks do this, they ask me questions like this all the time. And I would like to help more. I would like to help people troubleshoot their situations more. The problem is I don't have enough information. I don't have enough information of your situation to really be able to help you troubleshoot your situation where you're at. The first thing that I would suggest is, folks, where there's a will, there's a way. There's always a way around everything. You have to learn how to think outside of the box. You have to learn to think outside of the constraints that you've been placed in your whole life. Okay? So, in your situation, I don't know how many employees you have, how many people you have depending on you. There are unincorporated businesses. via the IRS. There's a trust. I don't know your company, how big it is, how long it's been established. You're saying that I'm assuming you and your partner own a company, okay? Can that ownership be transferred out of your names and into a trust? Can a trust take that company over? Can you sell it to a trust? Okay? Because what happens is the trust becomes the legal entity for the purpose of operating in commerce. Okay? First of all, folks, you need to understand something. You are a living soul. There is no legal definition for the term living soul because they don't have jurisdiction over it. If they don't have jurisdiction over it, they can't control it. They can't govern over it. There's legal definitions for man and woman. There's no legal definition for living soul because God alone has jurisdiction over living souls. You are a living soul within the container of a man or the container of a woman. All of that was given by God under his jurisdiction and his jurisdiction alone. So you as a living soul, you're not your name. Your name is a legal entity that was created by the state, so the state owns it and has jurisdiction over it. Your name is just a legal entity for the purpose of operating in commerce. Okay? So when you create a trust, a private irrevocable trust, unregistered but recorded, that trust becomes the legal entity for the purpose of operating in commerce. All right? And once you establish your private trust, you can get an EIN from the IRS. And then you can take that EIN and that certificate of trust to your banking institution and establish a banking account. Now, for some trusts, you have to be able to fund the trust, which means you have to place something of value in it. Okay? Gold, silver, there's no set amount. You just have to be able to fund the trust in order to get that banking account established. What that will allow is that will allow your trust. And then if you can sell your company to the trust, I don't know if that's possible for you in your situation, but that will allow the trust to operate in your place with the banking institution. A trust cannot be required to submit biometrics. And you have some of the wealthiest institutions in the world operating through trusts. The system is always going to give advantages to and privileges to certain legal entities, trusts being one. Okay? Now, when it comes to some of these laws, from what I am reading so far, the proof that your banking institutions are supposed to establish is citizenship. Okay? A passport will work in place of your real ID. Understand, passport is a different contract than accepting a real ID. The real ID is attached to the Real ID Act of 2005. That's a contract under a digital form of governance. Passport, total different contract. But when you fill out your passport, there's an opportunity for you to not claim your status as a United States citizen, but to claim your American national status. Okay? Non-citizen national is the proper legal term. That's an American national. So if you need that piece of plastic for some type of identification, the passport is what you can lean on for that. And in your passport, you have an opportunity to claim American national status. All of this matters because everything's going digital and you want to be uploaded into the new system on the right side of things. I hope this helps, but just think outside of the box and troubleshoot your situation while you have time. Make the hard decisions now and do what you have to avoid this. Hello there, my dear. I'm glad my video actually reached you. So, one thing at a time. There's two things I want to explain to everyone before I continue. The first thing I want to explain to you, folks, is a predator is a predator. Whether it's a predator in nature, a predatory human, or a predatory system of power, predators look for easy prey. It is their nature. They do not want to expend too much energy or too much resources in order to acquire what they need. And if you resist, predators tend to move on to easier prey. The second thing, before anyone asks, attorneys are bar card holders, okay? As members of the bar, they have an obligation to the state for the benefit of the state first and foremost. It is the states that want these things, and attorneys are bound to the benefit of the state first, which is why attorneys won't tell you what I'm about to tell you. Maybe some good ones will, but they're risking having the whole system turn against them and potentially losing their license to practice law if they violate that contract from the bar to work for the benefit of the state first and foremost. And you don't need an attorney to go to court on your behalf. You actually have far more rights and far more standing if you go yourself, but it takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of study, okay? So in your situation, they're claiming there's an easement, and under that easement, they actually want to bulldoze homes for the purpose of upgrading the power lines to build data centers. That's the claim. The claim is that there's an easement. So where's the easement? Okay, by legal definition, easement means the use of other people's property in order to provide some kind of service. Now, the guise of an easement is utility companies come in and they sign a contractual agreement with your county or with your state to use other people's property, and the government grants them that right under the guise that they're providing a public necessity, a public utility for the benefit of the public. Because government's first job is to make sure, is to be there to protect the benefit and the rights and the well-being of the public, not their own interests, not corporate interests. So the first claim, and it is just a claim, until it is proven, where's the easement? Where's that contractual agreement? That is public knowledge. You can always do a FOIA request to find it, but they should be providing it. If they're claiming there is one, then you all need to see it. And if they can't provide it, then you have an immediate stay. That's a false claim, okay? So this is contract law. Our whole system operates off of contract law. So where's the contract, first and foremost? If they do provide that easement, or you get a hold of that contractual agreement for the easement, you're going to want to read through that with fine-tooth comb, okay? Now, you're going to need a Black's Law Dictionary. Whenever you're reading legal documents, you need to understand the legal definition of words. Do not assume that you know what the words mean. Look up the legal definitions of the words. You're going to want to read through it with a fine-tooth comb. And the question is, when that contract was forged, because if they didn't reserve the right or rights in that original contract, those rights do not exist. So did they reserve the right to claim more land or take more land in the future, including taking land that was going to lead to public detriment? Remember, government's first job is to protect the benefits of the public. Bulldozing homes is not to the benefit of the public. So did they reserve the right to take more land in the future? Did they reserve the right to upgrade those power lines? Power lines which, historically have been proven to cause all kinds of health and environmental detriments to the public, to the ecosystem. Did they reserve those rights? If they did not reserve those rights, then they do not have those rights. Which means a new contractual easement would have to be forged at public detriment. And I will come back to that. The second claim is that these easements are allowed because it's a benefit to the public that these utility companies are providing a public necessity. So that's a claim. Is that claim true? Okay. Where is the proof that data centers and upgrading our power lines is going to be of any benefit to the public, particularly the public in your area? Where's the proof of that claim? Can it be proven? I guarantee you the answer is no. That's your first course of action. You need to see the easement, and you need to push it through a court to get a stay until all of these things are proven. Okay. The other issue is that the public is going in front of these councils and these commissioners and your local governing bodies, and you're speaking to these people as if they're supposed to be representing you, and that is not the case. Local governments are considered creatures of the state. They are corporate entities created by the state under the state's power and jurisdiction to do so for the purpose of helping the state govern and handle its responsibilities to its citizens. Okay? So your local governing bodies are really bound to, under the state, to operate for the benefits of the state, and that's the problem. Your state bodies, your state governing bodies, are the ones that want these data centers, okay? Now, here's where your constitutions come into play. Your states created these local governing bodies under their given constitutional powers to be able to do so. So they're leaning on the Constitution to be able to create these local governing bodies. And your state governing bodies are bound under their Constitution. They're gaining their power and their authority and their jurisdiction under your state constitutions. And your state constitutions have to be in line with your federal constitution. Okay? So all of your state constitutions outline and demand that your governing bodies, for every individual, they are obligated to protect your person, paperwork, and private property, which, quite frankly, all of these technological systems violate. But besides that, your states are pushing for the benefit of corporate entities alone, violating your person, paperwork, and private property. Which means it's void ab initio. That means without any lawful force from the beginning, from its inception. Okay? But what it's going to take is common people to bring this into the courts, to bring this into the public's consciousness, to have these discussions in public meetings, to help the public understand this is how it works. If your states are doing anything that's out of line with their constitution or the federal constitution, then they lose all jurisdiction. That means they don't have the power and the authority to allow anything. Okay? Now, another question is, exactly where does the Constitution allot the power of taxation to corporations? Like, aren't all of your local governing bodies taxing you folks? Where is their constitutional allotted authority to be able to do so? Because if you folks dig around your Secretary of State's website, you may be able to find the incorporation documents of all of your local governing bodies. I found mine. So if you dig around on your Secretary of State's office, you can find the incorporation documents. And in fact, in my local area, I found my county's bar association. So the next time I got to go to court, my first question is going to be, Your Honor, are you a member of this county's bar association? If the prosecutor, Mr. Prosecutor, are you? Yes, that's racketeering and collusion. I cannot possibly get any kind of fair judgment or trial in this court. And all of your local officials are operating in fraud, which means they have no immunity, and they're open to personal lawsuits once you expose this. Personal. Wreck them. Do you think? I mean, the whole system operates through deception and manipulation, my dear. I'm reading through your comments, and I think you might be like a baby in the truth, and I don't mean that disrespectfully. May God protect your innocence and your innocent soul, but the whole system operates through deception, okay? And my sister, you tell me you're a Christian. Did Jesus not warn you of this? Did he not warn you to have your eyes open and to be looking always? Did he not give you the prophecy to be aware of, okay? I mean, I've been diligently watching this coming since 2012 and studying the technological system since 2015. You folks, you don't have time to catch up. You need to trust in the people that have been here a while. You're going to have to trust in the guidance of, I guess you could say, elders in a deeper truth. And that's kind of what my content is directed toward. My content is directed towards people that have been well down every rabbit hole and are well informed and simply looking for deeper opinions, deeper seeds, etc. So I don't want to overwhelm you with information and create confusion for you, because I could tell you all kinds of legal ways and the legal aspect of this Real ID, but I don't want to confuse you. So what I'm going to tell you is, in one of your comments, you had stated that you've heard people saying, stop listening to the masses. Scripture refers to the masses as waters. Do you know why? Because the banks control the flow of waters. You don't ever want to go with the flow of the majority. And if you don't have the grit and the resilience and the strength to be able to stand in your own square and follow your own course that God has placed upon you, you're going to be in trouble, my sister. Okay? You have got to gain the strength to stand against 10,000 if you need to. No matter what everybody else is doing and everybody else is saying, you need to be seeking a deeper truth, okay? So in your state, you still have the option just to take that thing back to the DMV and tell them that you want just a typical state driver's license, okay? And I'm going to tell you something. If you're strong enough to do that, despite what those liars behind the counter will tell you, your state still offers an option. All of the states are different. There are some states, such as Utah, and I think Florida, that claim they do not offer a typical state driver's license anymore, okay? All of your states are different. They all have different state constitutions and different laws. You need to understand that, okay? But even in those states, I mean, I have legal information to help those people push back, because it's completely unconstitutional. And I'm speaking about the state constitutions in those states, okay? And if your state refuses to offer you a state-issued ID, a state-issued driver's license, which is supposed to be for the privilege to operate on public roads, publicly paid for by the people of the state, then your states are relinquishing all jurisdiction and authority over licensing, which means all of those statutes that they use for extortion and criminalization are now null and void. Because what the Real ID is it's a federal ID that takes all of your biometric data and enters it into a federal biometric database that is interlinked with every single camera system nationwide, operating off of your biometrics and all of your personal data. It's linked to the 2005 Real ID Act, which only deals with immigration and the big ism with a T. Why is this a big deal? Because if you guys have been paying attention to the step-by-step process, first they pushed the Real ID. It took them 25 years to push that on the public, because when they first created that bill or that act, Americans lost their mind. You had congressmen coming out against it. You had states that banned it back then. And the public forgets. And now they've slid it in. But if you guys are paying attention to the timeline, first they initiate the Real ID, telling you that you can't access federal buildings and flights without it, which is a lie. A passport works. Then you guys heard about ICE being placed on the streets for illegal immigrants. Then you guys see ICE actually going after normal Americans. Normal Americans participating in their constitutional rights. Then you hear about Palantir, being placed over all of your flock cameras. And then you hear that they have access to even some of your personal cameras, such as your Ring cameras. Now you're hearing about Palantir involved in our military and even just recently placed over the Department of Agriculture. And they're all leaning on that federal biometric database that the Real ID instituted, because accepting that as a contract into that digital database for the purpose of a digital form of governance coming over you. And you guys haven't seen the drones yet. You're not seeing the robotics. Okay? And here's the problem with the biometric database through the Real ID. Because everything is now interlinked, your legal entity, which is your name, is now a file in the cloud because we're moving into Web3. What that means is all of your medical data, all of your digital data, even your smart devices that are listening and watching when you don't know that they are, they're collecting all of that data. They don't need you to go to the DMV to update your biometrics any longer. It's updating all the time, including your medical data. Okay? So they don't need you to submit your, anything concerning your biophysiology. They can get it through other methods, and you accepted it. And that's the only problem with those that accepted the Real ID. You can go back to the DMV and you can request a normal state driver's license. And if you're brave enough to do so, just know that you will be standing for Jesus Christ. You will be standing for the kingdom of Christ against this beast system. You will be standing on the right side of the Bible, or the right side of this battle, I should say. And I pray that you have grace and blessing, and the Holy Spirit will give you all of the knowledge that you need to know when you need to know it, just like Scripture promises us. However, that contract is still there. That entrance into that biometric database is still there. And undoing that contract, can it be done? I'm certain that it can, but it would take a lot of legal knowledge, a lot of bravery. You'd have to go after your deputy registrars of these states. And do I know how to do it? Not exactly. I have ideas because I haven't had to do it. And I'm not going to go through the life energy to figure that out. Okay, I'm not. I have my own battles I'm fighting, guys. So, for those that did enter into it, that's something that you can research, you can do. And then teach others freely. But that contract is unfortunately still there. Now, for people that will say, well, they got your biometric data anyways. They sure do, but they don't have the consent. They don't have the contract, and they need it. They need it, okay? If you understand what happened in the last, I guess you could say, upgrading of this system, into this monetary system, because all of this goes back to the monetary system, this new digital global currency that they want to initiate. It's all interlinked. The data centers, all of it. In that old system, it was the birth certificate. That simple piece of paper entered people into it. That simple bond, because it is bondage. This digital ID, the Real ID, is the equivalent of that birth certificate. It's entering you under the jurisdiction of this new form of governing system. Don't accept it. And just understand, my sister, the serpent has always operated through lies, deception, and manipulation. You have got to have your eyes open, okay? Now, you can think I'm a crazy lady on the internet, or you can pray about it and let the Father lead you to a deeper truth.